Hi, Bill Landing with you again on Interesting Individuals. My guests today are with the Dunes Arts Foundation, the Dunes Summer Theater. They're going to talk about what's going on this summer and why they are a couple of interesting individuals. I have Steve Scott and Micheal Lasswell with me. Well, we're starting the show off on a great note because I haven't asked one question, you're both laughing. So it shows you're here to have a good time. Okay, I'd like to find out, where are you two gentlemen from originally?
I'm originally from Oregon mostly, though part of my childhood was Los Angeles and England. But if you want to find out the way my brain works, it's definitely Oregon.
Oregon. Steve?
I'm from Overland Park, Kansas, which is a suburb of Kansas City.
Okay.
So it's much less glamorous than Michael's.
Well, let's talk about both of you and your background in theater.
All right.
Whoever, please.
I mean, I started in high school, like a lot of people, and I studied theater at the University of Kansas. Early in my career, I ran a summer stock company, which is why it's so nice to be at the Dunes. Is kind of my career has kind of formed a nice circle. Most notably, I was the producer at the Goodman Theater in Chicago for about 35 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which was...
who were, if I may ask, who were some of the well-known people that went through there?
Oh, my goodness. Well, Brian Dennehy, who worked with us a lot. Philip Seymour Hoffman directed a show for us. Oh, my heavens. Patti LuPone. And a couple of people who started before they were even famous. Callista Flockhart.
Oh, yes.
One of her first professional jobs was at the Goodman Theater. So a lot of people came through. Nathan Lane. I mean, it was a very interesting job, and I enjoyed it very much. But after 40 years, I decided it was time to let somebody younger take over. So I retired in 2017.
Oh, okay.
And since then, I've been doing a lot of freelance directing in Chicago and at the Dunes.
All righty. So. And Micheal, how about you?
I started out, my dad was an actor. He made a couple of little Disney movies. And he was like the third cop from the right in a bunch of stuff. And I was a child actor. Did a lot of stage work when I was a kid. And I had, the way people have stage mothers, I had an art mother. She would give me cookies if I would paint for her. So about half the time I would be acting, and the other half of the time I was painting, and I illustrated some children's books when I actually was a child.
Oh, good for you.
And I got to college, and I thought theater was for crazy people, so I majored in journalism and then psychology, and then I figured out what I really wanted to do was major in gossip. So I changed my major to theater. Studied both set design and acting, and for the last, 40 years of my life, I've been working either as a professional director or actor or playwright or set designer. I think they're all the same job. You're just
your set designing is the main thing you're doing this summer.
Although I directed the first show. I directed By Spirit.
By Spirit. How did everything go?
It was great.
It was a wonderful production.
Well, good. That's good to know.
Modesty prevents me from talking about how much I loved that production, but a lot of people like that.
Who's doing Tally's Folly?
Morgan McCabe, who resides in New Chicago, Indiana, but I have known her for years and years. She was an actress in Chicago when I was working there. And she moved out here about the same time I did, and so I brought her into the Dunes this year, and she's wonderful.
Well, what is it about Michigan City that appeals to you?
Well, my husband and I bought a house in Long Beach in like 1995 as a weekend place. And after I retired from the Goodman, we started spending more time here. We were here for the pandemic, so we were here full time for about a year and a half.
That was a bad thing.
Well, it was. But during that time, I started directing a couple of shows at the Dunes. A friend of mine was the artistic director at that point. And then the job of artistic director opened up, and people on the board came to me, and I said, sure, I'll do it. It's just, the setting of the theater is beautiful. It's like working in Shangri-La. You're surrounded by trees, and for a city boy, it's just wonderful to go to work and not have to deal with traffic, but also it's just a wonderful kind of creative environment physically.
Yeah.
And the theater itself is a historic old theater and lovely to work in. And I bring in people that I find who want to work in that kind of environment. So it's a lovely creative place.
Yeah. Michael, how about you?
I have been working with Steve Scott for 20 years, where I've been the resident set designer for Roosevelt University in Chicago, and I'm retiring this year. And Steve and I had we've done 10 shows together.
At least.
We've only done academic theater together. And Steve called me last year to ask me about designing several plays, and he said, it's out in the woods. And I said, yeah, well, my therapist says I should get more nature. And so the woods wasn't a problem, and I would crawl through broken glass to work with Steve Scott.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So this was the nice place for you to come to.
Broken glass. Nobody's ever said that about
Right. It's true. It's true. You go through all of these experiences in your life, and you don't know who you're going to work with and if they're going to be talented. I've never seen you do bad directing work, and when we collaborate, it's like the Vulcan mind meld.
We tend to think very much alike,
exactly.
which is nice.
As directors, there's different approaches. One works best. A question to each of you: what approach to directing do you like the most?
I'll let you
or the best?
I think there's a world of every play. There's a way the characters see the world. You know what I mean? And for me, I figure out what kind of town it's going to be. Right? So in Tally's Folly, it's a town that's been neglected and rode hard and put away wet, and everything is worn and used and damaged. And so I was trying to create the beauty of damaged things. In Blythe Spirit, everybody wants to be the most interesting people they can possibly be. So there was this art and glamour, and you just tried to impress people with everything in your house and everything you said. Bridges in Madison County is a memory play about longing. And so what we're trying to do is create the feeling of sitting on a farmhouse porch and looking out over these fields of corn or fields of wheat and an endless sky, sort of like Christina's World by Andrew Wyeth. So we're trying to create that sense of longing and wanting the life you could have had.
Okay,
right.
We'll get back to Bridges of Madison County in a little bit, but Steve?
My job as a director is not to order everybody around, but it's to collaborate with everyone. So what I try to do in rehearsal is make sure that everybody has a voice and can comment on what's going on and can bring themselves to it. So we spend a lot of time talking at first, and sometimes not even talking about the play. A lot of times talking about, with Bridges, we talked a lot about have you had a lost love? Have you lived in a small community in an isolated part of the country? What was that like? That sort of thing. And I learned a long time ago that I'm not always the smartest person in the room. So if I can get other people to kind of give me input, then I can corral all of that, and we end up with a show that everybody has a stake in, not just the director, but everybody is part of that. So
you're looking to add something.
No, you don't know this. I was sitting in the kitchen. There's a communal kitchen and communal bathrooms down there, and all the actors shared kitchen supplies, and they were all talking about the table work that you had done on the first day of actual nitty-gritty stuff. And one person said, that was the best table work I've ever had in my life. And somebody else said, yeah, I didn't feel like I had to impress anybody. There was no pressure. I just got to share. And everybody had this atmosphere where we could just share. And there was general consensus behind your back that it was the best table work they'd ever done in their life.
That's good.
You know, and this is sort of leading into my next question. What is the most important thing on the first day of rehearsal? You said you collaborate with everybody. So I guess you've sort of partially answered that for me. But again, the first day, meeting the actors and everybody, what's going on there?
It's to make sure that everybody feels safe, protected, and comfortable.
Okay.
part of that is my personality. That's what I try to do in life. But if you don't feel safe, if you feel like you're under the gun or you're being judged, then you won't do your best work. So that's why we form a little family. Every cast I've ever worked with becomes a little family for the 6 or 8 weeks that we're together. And that's really important.
Yeah. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, that sense of safety. It's such a lonely life, your life on the road. You know, it's not a career, it's not a job, it's a calling, being a theater artist. And when you land in these towns, you need to know that you're going to be okay, you know, and that people want the best for you, and that the cast wants the best for each other. So yeah, that sense of collaboration, that sense that, you know, I'm not just the hired maid, you know, taking orders, I'm actually a participant in this process, whatever your job is, actor, designer, director. That no good art works alone.
Right.
It has to be shared.
Now, Steve, you are the artistic director. What all does that entail other than just directing?
Well, I put together the season, first of all. I figure out what plays we're going to do and how we're going to do them. And I'm in charge of hiring most of the artistic staff, for want of a better word, the actors, the directors, the designers, all the people that we're going to collaborate with to put that season together. And then, you know, I'm also on the board, so you know, together with the board, we deal with financial things and business things and all that sort of stuff. But my primary job is to really make it possible to do really good work that people will want to see. And so I spend a lot of time looking at plays and a lot of time looking at people to make sure that that's possible.
Make sure that's possible, okay. Now, Michael, you are usually, again, set designing is among some of the things you've done. What have you done this year with the set designing? Anything yet?
Oh, well, Blithe Spirit and, what do you call it? Tally's Folly. Last year, I had a great time designing a glamorous Paris apartment for Boeing down here. And then we did Tick, Tick, Boom, which was one of the greatest musical experiences I've ever had in my life.
Wow.
It was inside the mind of this composer as he's heading for his 30th birthday, and it was all of CBGBs and that sort of downtown Alphabet City world of Rent, but done as a weird piece of collage art with about 20 clocks on stage.
Michael, as a set designer, is extraordinary because I've worked with some designers who come in and say, okay, what do you need? Well, what I need is a set. But what he does is he captures kind of the inner meaning of the play. I mean, Tick, Tick, Boom is about a composer who's trying to make it big. But it's really about a lot of other things. And his designs reflect that, so it kind of elevates the play in a way that makes it more accessible to audiences, I think. Because, you know, who ultimately is interested in what a young composer does? But I'm interested in what a person does who's struggling to find his identity.
My first question is, why are we doing this play?
Right.
What is the dialogue with the audience? Does it have to be said? Does it have to be said right now? Does it have to be said by me? And the why of the dialogue with the audience is the first question I have, and that leads to the world of the play. You know, so for instance, you know, I think good plays, good musicals are about creating sympathy for people who you otherwise might not have sympathy for.
Excuse me, are all the plays musicals this year?
No, just Bridges of Madison County and the cabaret that we do at the end.
Yeah, but so if you just looked at the plot of Bridges of Madison County and just put labels on these people, they wouldn't be interested.
Which is what I'm getting into. We both started to touch base a little bit on Bridges of Madison County. Now let's really go into more in depth about what it's about.
Okay, well, it's about a woman, Francesca, who's the central character, and she, the play takes place in 1965, but the story starts in 1943. Francesca, as a young woman, lived in Naples, Italy, which in 1943 was undergoing horrific bombing and problems there. The war was especially nasty in Naples. There she met a young American GI. They started a relationship, and he brought her to his home, which is Winterset, Iowa, which could not be more different than Naples.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, for so many reasons. Then we pick up 18 years later, 18 years into their marriage, and Francesca is kind of not overtly thinking, but thinking about what have I lost? I mean, her life is fine. She has a family, and it's all just great. But there's something missing in her life. And then she meets a photographer for National Geographic who's coming through to photograph the bridges that are in Madison County, Iowa. And very slowly they form a relationship. And it brings her the kind of, passion is the wrong word, but the kind of love and acceptance that she has not necessarily felt recently in her marriage. And then we see what happens with that relationship.
If I may ask, how many characters are in Bridges of Madison County altogether?
There are 10 actors playing a variety of characters, but it's a fairly small musical as musicals go.
I think the reason the book and then the movie struck a nerve is that it's hard to be married, and you give up a lot of stuff to be married, and you give up, and especially if you get married in haste for maybe the wrong reasons. She got married to her husband. This was a period, Sophia Loren almost starved to death in the war and just after the war in Italy. And so you had people starving to death. She meets this GI. He needs her. She needs him. She marries him to escape the rubble and the dirty water she's living in. And she makes a life. She has a couple of kids. And ultimately what happens is she realizes she never had a soulmate. She never had somebody she could communicate with, but she has a life. And the thing is, if you have kids and your kids depend on you, you have to make hard choices. Even if your marriage isn't perfect. And sometimes your kids need you more if your marriage isn't perfect.
Roughly how many songs are in this movie?
Good Lord. A lot.
2 or 3,
There are, I would guess, around 15, something like that. It is jam-packed with music, but the music, I mean, it's a fairly familiar story because the book was a bestseller, and of course the movie with Meryl Streep and Clint Eastwood was a big hit.
I had a feeling Clint Eastwood was in that. I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to be wrong.
He directed it. So people know the story. They kind of they look at it as a kind of romance. What the music adds is the whole idea of longing, of what could I have had, what did I miss. Which makes it sound very kind of, oh my, poor me. It's not that at all. It's just talking about, you reach a certain point in life and, okay, what else, what don't I have after this life?
The dirty little secret that Steve is too modest to say is you'd be happy to see these singing actors sing this score anywhere in the world. Broadway had some of the best performers I know, and they're singing it as well as it was sung on Broadway. They're amazing. True. I feel like we should charge tickets to the rehearsals.
Where are some of your actors from?
A number are from the Chicago area. Several are from Michigan City or this part of Indiana. Christiana, who plays Francesca, is from the Washington, D.C. area. So, one of perhaps the only good thing about COVID in the theater world is that auditions are now regularly done on video rather than in person. So we can see people from all over the country. And we've had people from everywhere come to the Dunes in the last years.
You both have background, Steve, you especially in Chicago. Chicago is a great theater city, isn't it? One of the best.
When I moved to Chicago from Kansas, I thought, okay, I'll be in Chicago for a few years, and then I'll move to New York, which is at that point in the late 70s. That's kind of what theater artists planned to do. I got to Chicago, and there was so much going on, and it just mushroomed in the first years that I was there. I very quickly decided, no, this is where I want to be, because this is about doing wonderful work, not becoming a star and becoming rich. But it's a wonderful creative atmosphere and a very supportive one from audiences. So I've loved the years that I've spent in Chicago.
Michael, how about? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I fell into Chicago in a former marriage. My former husband lived in Chicago, and then I got this great job at Roosevelt University, which is ending now. And then I came down here and fell in love with the whole Michiana area. I mean, maybe it's because I was raised in a forest in Oregon.
Well, it resembles that.
Yeah. And then, ironically, last year on July 3rd, I met what I think is my soulmate. So romance bumped into me down here.
You down here. Here's a question on directing. Do women take it differently than men do?
In terms of when you give direction?
Yes.
I think every actor takes it differently. And one of my jobs as a director is to figure out how I communicate with this person. And some people do want to be told, okay, go here, go here, go here. Some people want to figure that out for themselves in rehearsal. Some people like the positive direction. Some people just want to know what they did wrong. And you have to, each actor has their own language. And you kind of have to figure out what language that is. That's one of the fascinating things to me, is figuring out how to deal with each actor and bring them together in a unified whole.
Michael?
Do women take direction? As a 63-year-old man, there's no safe way I can answer this question because I'll get canceled in a minute. I think it does come down to the individual actor. I think that, what's his name? Joseph Mankiewicz, who directed All About Eve.
I remember him.
Said that a little boy in the schoolyard, if he wants the ball from another little boy, he hits it. And you just go the shortest distance between 2 points. Women have to be more calculating when they're little girls and are used to obstacles and are used to playing the cover and things like that. Yeah. So I find it's easier to tell a woman how to play the cover on stage where men don't quite understand the cover.
Okay.
Most straight guys are 10 sentences from punching another guy in the nose. But women are not.
Yeah.
And that reserve, that linear thought, let's call it, being able to think from A to B to C to D is more present for women than it is for men, in my experience.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about we talked about Bridges of Madison County. Can you talk a little bit about the Dunes Broadway Cabaret and Voices from the Heartland?
Oh, boy. Well, the cabaret began, I think, 4 years ago. This is the 4th year of it. And it's simply, we bring back some performers from the past in the Dunes. We have some of our current performers. And they're simply performing songs that they love, most of which are show-related. We try to choose a theme for each cabaret, but that theme is so general it can kind of include almost anything.
Yeah.
But I think what's thrilling about it, well, first we have the best music director in the entire world, Andrew Flash, who is, I've worked on a lot of musicals and I've worked with a lot of professional musical directors, and he is by far the best. He knows how actors think, he's very specific, and he knows what the music provides. Anyway, but it's watching these artists kind of do the pieces that they love most, and it's really, really lovely.
Very good.
The Voices from the Heartland is our new play festival, which we started last year. And it's basically a series of staged readings of new works by people from this area, from Northwest Indiana, Southwest Michigan. And I started it last year just to kind of see, because I didn't know a lot of people around, especially the writers around. We got some incredible plays, and we had some wonderful readings out of those.
Okay.
I also use pretty much only local actors for a number of reasons, including financial. We don't have to bring people in necessarily.
Yeah.
And I found some wonderful acting talent that I hadn't seen before.
Oh, good.
So it's a way for our audiences to discover what the next hot play might be, and it's a way to give these writers an airing. Playwrights have to see their work. They can't just sit in their kitchens and write and then hope that it's worth something. They need to see it in action.
That's a good point.
And it was a very satisfying experience last year, and I've been reading some of the submissions we got for this year, and these are even better. So
that's great.
So I'm really happy.
That is great to know. All right. Well, it sounds like it has been a successful summer so far,
And
it's going to continue. So, Steve Scott and Micheal Lasswell, I want to thank you for being my guests, and continued success with the rest of the summer at the Dunes. And thank you for sharing all this.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. This has been great.
Okay. That's this edition of Interesting Individuals. I'm Bill Landing. Thank you for watching.